Hello one and all, and thank you for joining me for still more mechanical misadventures. Well, we've reached the end of the year, and you know what that means. I'm looking out over the sea of unfinished projects, outright garbage, and completely abandoned projects sitting all across my garage, and I think, you know what? Sitting around here is the perfect ingredients for another snowblower. That's right, we're gonna build ourselves another Gravely snowblower. This time we're gonna go for another diesel. And if you remember, I showed you actually how to do another diesel. I did one. I'm not satisfied with the way that turned out for a couple of reasons. It turned out it was a little bit more art than science. And I don't feel too good just going up on camera and saying, here's how you do it. You can figure out the in-betweens because you're a smart guy. So, I mean, if Bob Ross rolled up and was like, here is my beautiful painting, you know, just do it any kind. Now, while I'm sure my hero Bob Ross would be proud of the way my Gravely turned out, I am not. So we're gonna go for a little bit more of a simple approach this time around. I've amassed quite a horde of Gravely parts getting this far, and looking around I realized that I have all the parts to make this one. So let me break it down for you and show you what we're doing. So here we go. Here's the breakdown of all the parts we're planning to use, and if it looks like a hodgepodge, that's because it is. But I'll explain to you a little bit of my rationale behind all these things, aside from it was lying around. So we're gonna start with a C10A transaxle. I have this C10A transaxle, and that's kind of what kicked this off. I bought it for a C10 that I picked up when I decided to use its high-low planetary for a snowblower. Well, I felt kind of bad about that, and that project left me with a C10A transaxle and C10 planetaries. And I decided to put those two together in combination with this diesel because the C10 planetary is made for a much lower RPM than the C10A. So I think that'll work really well with the low RPM that this diesel is capable of. But you can also wind this diesel out to like 3600 RPM if you really feel like it. So I think that'll be a good fit. We can run it nominally at the 2600 RPM that this C10 planetary likes to be ran at. But we could also run it higher if I gotta get somewhere in a hurry for whatever reason. So next, we got this commercial 8 adapter plate. He's a poet and he don't know it. And that's gonna bolt up to that diesel quite nicely. You can actually use the C10 or C10A adapter and it'll bolt right up, but you gotta start making plates. And I don't wanna make any plates. I did it with that other one. This time I wanna have a very foolproof and measured approach to my diesel swap. So we're just gonna not do that. I'll show you how it fits next time. So commercial 8 or professional 8 adapter plate. It's fun rhyming those. And the next we got a 186F Yanmar diesel clone. That is the engine. That's gonna make the magic happen. Last time around we didn't do any machining on that crankshaft, and I think overall it's just going to be easier to machine it. So that's what we're gonna do. I think we're gonna end up with a more compact product in the end, and I think that's gonna be quite nice, and it'll be much better fitted to the snow and just the small jobs that my little property has to offer. So let's get on it. So I actually already have this mocked up. Right here we got the C10A transaxle. It goes right up to here. Right now we're using the C10 adapter plate. I'll show you why that doesn't work. It works for this mock-up, but I want to see how it fits with the commercial 8, not commercial 10 plate. And then here we got our Yanmar. Scooped this up for an okay deal. Nothing compared to the first one, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. I did take this cowling off. There's a bit of a noise coming from it, so in this video I want to check that out. If you can hear that, something scooting around in there. The reason I took the cowling off in the first place is there was some screws and stuff that got in there. So I think what happened is some screws, miscellaneous hardware got in here, and it's probably magnetized onto the back of the alternator, and that's what's causing this trouble. Okay, the first thing I want to do is take off all of this electrical stuff that's just getting in the way. Let's start with this. This is pretty obvious. This is our ignition. This looks like a ground. I believe all this right here is a part of the remote starting feature. And in case you can't tell, this is hosed. This came off of an Aurora generator, I believe it's called, or silent diesel is a similar thing. Right here we got this yellow, which goes onto the spade, and this black, which looks like a ground. This is as much for my benefit as it is yours. I don't want to label this, so I'm just gonna talk to the camera. And I do this pretty frequently. I go back and I look at old videos for my notes. See, we got 2 grounds right there and there, but in case you can't tell, that's being blocked by the adapter plate. We'll have to take it off. Take it on back to the other side. Here we've got our inverter for the alternator. We'll just take this off. I don't want to unplug it because, well, I may decide to give this thing a pressure wash bath. So it'll be best to take all the electronics off of it. We got this red spade for the starter, and then a 13 that holds on the main starter wire, and this white wire. And now that's the whole harness. Not much to it. Okay, let's pull this off. I have some concerns for this motor. I did see it running, you know, stuff jangling in the flywheel and all, but there's some things on it that make me think someone's been in here and then I guess decided it wasn't worth their while. And I would hate to find myself deciding something similar. So why do I think that? Well, this intake manifold, if you look around, it's only got 1 screw in, and obviously wasn't that way from the factory. So somebody took them all out and put them back in with only 1 screw. Another thing is there is a piece of metal on that flywheel bolt sticking out, and that's a little bit concerning. And it looks kind of like lock wire or something like that. So it makes me think that someone had that flywheel off as well. Let's yank this flywheel off. It's a 27. Oh, that was so much better than last time. Last time I used manual tools. All right, we just got this bad boy off. There is an actual puller tool for this, but you can also take a pry bar, put it on this really strong stud right here, crank up on it. You can give it some light taps around the side with a 3-pound sledge and heat this up. Just don't heat it up too much because behind it is a nut. It was a nut. An actual nut. That's funny. Well, that's probably the most minor thing it could have been, because even while it was spinning, this relatively soft nut would just get eaten away by the alternator. So that's good news. Ooh, it's like 20 pounds lighter with that flywheel off. This engine has a catalytic converter on the end of it, so the project may very well pay for itself. Either way, nice little present for me. If I take this plate naked as it is and I stick it there, oh yeah, that's not gonna seal. You can see that. No bueno. Does fit in there quite nicely. So remember the gaps. Here is our commercial 8 plate. There we go. It lines up super nicely in there, right up against all these. Now it is time to do some measuring. Here we got our Yanmar diesel over here, and here we have the original engine, a Kohler K241. So as you can tell, these are quite different, and we're gonna have to measure all these differences out. We wanna get the total shaft protrusion as well as how much to cut it back. Hello everybody, it is sometime later and we got all of our measurements. Let me just lay it out for you. So what we really wanna have is our net protrusion and to know how much we're cutting back from there. So Here is our old Kohler on the C10. And like I said, we have our spacer right here. Came in at 5.525. That's a fraction. Can't for the life of me remember it. But we also had that little extra lip. That lip pokes in 0.18. And so given all those measurements, we have a net protrusion of 0.2 or 2.9 inches. So not quite 3. And we're cut back 1.93. Now over here on the Yanmar side, things are a little bit easier. The spacer does have a little bit of relief cut in it. I was talking about that earlier. So we're sticking out of 0.318. The shaft goes 3.05. And so we're at a net of 2.682, which means we've got to cut in 0.712. And of course, we're hogging it down to a 3/4 shaft. So that's what we're gonna do at the end of the day. It took quite a lot of measuring to get here. Remember, this is very critical. We're taking stuff apart. We won't be able to mock this up again. So measure twice, cut once. You know how it goes. So at this point, it's now time to take apart the motor. There's no putting it off anymore. We got to get to that crankshaft. And I already did that for the previous build. And I'll put a link up so you can take a look at that. But I'm just going to do that off camera because I'm going to be in the zone. Catch you later. Here it is. That's what all the trouble was for. Last time around, I went and took some quotes out, and people are saying it'd take like $900 to machine this thing. I don't know about that. So we're going to try again. This time we're probably going to do it ourselves down at Diesel Days Farm. The stinker's actually coming back. So let's see if we can't go and hog this thing out on the lathe. Some bad news came of that. Got the piston. And it's messed up. Pieces of the piston are coming out. I don't know if you can see this, but that's not ring, that's piston. But rather astonishingly for how bad that is, as bad as that is, there's actually plenty of cross hatching and stuff like that still in the cylinder. So it looks like it's pretty good. I mean, this always was cheap. And the good thing about that is you could replace it for cheap. So we'll get on that. We'll get another one of these rings and everything. And then when we put it back together, it'll be all ready for the Gravely. But that's next time. Till then, shoots.